ISC2 expects us not only to know how security protects systems, but also how attackers actually break security. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's CISSP quick sip, we are going to understand the DAD trade. This is Nandana. Let's move to today's topic. CIA, we already have learned in the previous video, which is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So DAD is considered exactly opposite to CIA. So what is DAD? Before going to see what it is, let's have a recap of what CIA trade is. So in CIA, we spoke about confidentiality, integrity, and availability already. DAD trade speaks exactly opposite of confidentiality, availability, and integrity, which is disclosure, alteration, and destruction. So DAD trade represents security failures or attackers' objectives. D stands for disclosure. When the confidential information gets exposed, it's called disclosure. A stands for alteration. So when data is changed without authorization. And the final D stands for denial or destruction when systems or data becomes unavailable. So CIA represents protection goals, whereas DAD represents attack outcomes. This comparison is very important for CISP exam. So confidentiality is broken by disclosure, integrity by altering the data, availability by denial or destruction. Attackers always try to create these bad conditions in your companies, while security professionals try to maintain this CIA principles. Let's see few real world examples for the DAG trade. Remember, CIA represents protection goals, whereas DAD represents attack outcomes. So, the real world example of disclosure happens when data leaks, a password exposes, or customer information has breached. Suppose a hacker steals customer credit card information from a company's database and publishes it online. This is a confidentiality failure. Sensitive information was disclosed to unauthorized people. This is what exactly the disclosure in DAD representation. So here on the card, whatever information you are seeing has been accessed by the attacker unauthorizedly, and a confidential data breach has happened with the customer details, credit card numbers, financial records, and personal information. So here the data has been disclosed. Let's see another real world example of alteration. Suppose there is a payroll manipulation handband by an attacker in the salary records. So the data is no longer trustworthy. This breaks integrity because information was modified improperly. In CISSP, integrity always means accuracy and trustworthiness of data. Not only in payroll manipulation, unauthorized file modifications, changing bank balances, all these are considered as some real world examples of alteration. We always keep facing such kind of issues also in our real world. Next, let's talk about denial or destruction. So, what is ransomware? When an attacker stops our services by attacking to our systems, and only he or she will say that they will release our services when you pay a good amount to them. That is called ransomware. DDoS attack, which is called distributed denial of service attack. So, what is DDoS? So, DDoS is a cyber attack where many computers or devices flood a server, a website, or a network with massive traffic, making it slow or completely unavailable to real users. So, let's take an example. A shop can serve only 50 customers at a time, a physical shop. Suddenly, thousands of fake customers enter together. They are not here to purchase anything but just to flood the store. So real customers cannot enter or buy anything. This is similar to our DDoS attack and also server crash. So when these happens, users cannot access systems when needed. So this is an availability failure because there is a denial or destruction of the service or the data. So all these are examples, and service outage, business disruption, data loss or unusability, legal and compliance risks are the impacts which happens by the denial of this services. So let's see a memory trick which we can use it for our exam. So always remember mnemonics: CIA, confidentiality, integrity, availability, DAD, disclosure, alteration, and denial or destruction. So whenever you see confidentiality breaches, data tampering, or service outages in scenario-based questions, think always about this DAD trade. CIA protects systems, whereas DAD represents attacks and failures. So CIA is considered as security objectives, and you can consider DAD as security failures. Let's understand the concept clearly by question. Let's take a hacker who has modified patient medical records in a hospital database. So, do you consider this as alteration of data or integrity failure? So, both the answers are very close, right? But how do you figure out which is the right option? So, which DAD component is involved here? The answer is alteration because data was changed improperly, and from CIA perspective, this is integrity failure. So in such situations, you have to read the question carefully, whether they are asking about the DAD component or the CIA component. So here, as we are talking about the DAD, by default, this is considered as DAD, and the answer is integrity failure. If it is in CIA thread, if it is in DAD thread, it is alteration. So finally, CIA protects systems, whereas DAD represents attacks and failures. So CIA is security objective and DAD is security failure. To summarize, CIA represents the goals of cybersecurity, whereas DAD represents what attackers try to achieve. Confidentiality versus disclosure, integrity versus alteration, availability versus denial or destruction. This is very small but very important for an exam. So if you find this video helpful, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel CISSP Quick Sips. Now, all the questions in CISSP are CAT based, that is, computer aided test, which is followed by the CISSP. So, one thing which I would like to tell you here is when you start a course, when you start a book, or when you start watching a playlist of videos, especially when it comes to CISSP, no matter what happens, but don't stop or don't discontinue reading. So whatever you have started, even I have completed, I have cleared my certification in 5 months. So what I have studied is the CISSP official guide. After that, I have practiced questions from the same series. Come back to our video, and these are few important scenarios which we can consider in the DAT grade. So let's read the question a couple of times to understand it clearly. If you make a habit of reading it twice now, it becomes very easy for you when you are attempting it in the real exam. A healthcare organization discovers that attackers copied encrypted patient data from backup tapes. So, what the attacker has done, he has copied encrypted patient data from backup tapes. However, the attackers never obtained the encryption keys, which security principle was most likely preserved. So, without getting the encryption key, attacker cannot modify the data. But what they have done is they have copied the encrypted patient data. Now let's see what are the options available here. Availability, integrity, confidentiality, and non-repudiation. So what's the question they're asking? Which security principle was most likely preserved? So it's already available, the data is available, so it is gone. Integrity, they don't have the encryption key, so integrity is gone. Confidentiality, yes, we can park this answer. And non-repudiation. So what do you mean by non-repudiation first? So first we have to understand the terms before selecting the answer. This helps us to, decide on the right answer. So non-manipulation is nothing but it is a principle which ensures a person or entity cannot deny having performed a particular action, such as sending a message, signing a document, or initiating a transaction. So you can't deny your action. That is what non-repudiation is. So here, non-repudiation is not considered. So only answer available is confidentiality. Let's go to the next quick sip. An attacker changes transaction values in a banking database without disrupting service availability. So what happened here? Attacker has modified the data in a banking database, but there is no effect on availability. So which DAD component best describes this attack? So the available options are disclosure, denial, alteration, and destruction. So here the attacker has modified the data. It's clearly given. So this directly maps to alteration in the DAT trade and compromises integrity in the CIA trade because it is DAT trade. Now the answer is alteration. Next scenario. A company experiences a ransom attack where all production systems remain online, but users cannot access their files because the files are encrypted. Read again. A company experiences a ransomware attack where all production systems remain online, but users cannot access their files because the files are encrypted. Which security objective is most affected among confidentiality, integrity, availability, and accountability? So here, if you see the question carefully, the access of files has been affected, right? So even though systems are technically running, users are not able to access the required data. So availability is measured by usable access here, not just by the server uptime. So this is how the questions will be, twisted in the exam. So the answer is availability. Next scenario. An organization implements hashing. So, when do hashing works? During encryption to detect unauthorized changes to files stored in a repository. So, what happened? Organization implements hashing. Why? To detect unauthorized changes. To what? To the files which are stored in a repository. So, which CIA principle is the organization's most directly protecting among availability, integrity, confidentiality, and privacy? So, here hashing helps us to detect unauthorized modifications of data. So, it ensures that information remains accurate and unchanged. So, availability, no, it's nothing related to it. Integrity, yes, we can pack this answer. Confidentiality, no. Privacy, there is no concept or no CIA principle. Privacy is not a CIA principle. So here the best option is integrity. Here comes the next question. An attacker intercepts sensitive data packets traversing the network but cannot modify them. He's able to intercept but not able to modify. So, which attack category best fits this scenario? Active attack affecting integrity, or passive attack affecting confidentiality? Active attack, which is affecting availability, or passive attack, which is affecting availability. So, here they have mentioned two types of attacks, active and passive, and among integrity, confidentiality, and availability. So the question is about CIA Triad because we don't have any of the data. So the attacker only observed or captured data without changing it, right? So this is called a passive attack because there is no live uh, theft or effect on the customer's data that threatens confidentiality to disclosure. So the answer is passive attack, which is affecting the confidentiality. Next, during a forensic investigation, analysts determined that unauthorized database modifications occurred due to weak change management process rather than external compromise. So the attacker is not the external person, but because of the weak change management process, the unauthorized data modifications have been occurred. Which control best reduce this risk? RAID implementation, encryption at rest, change control procedures, or backup scheduling. So the issue involves unauthorized or improper modifications. So, strong change management and approval processes helps preserve integrity and also it prevents alteration. So the answer is not encryption, not backup, not RAID implementation. It's only change control procedures. Next is about DOS attack, which is denial of service attack. So a DOS attack overwhelms a public facing API gateway. API is application programming interface, preventing legitimate customer transactions. Which DAD component is most applicable among disclosure, alteration, destruction or denial, repudiation. So in that, there is no R, so eliminate this directly. So among these three, the service becomes unavailable to legitimate users. So this is the opposite of availability. So what is the opposite of availability? Destruction or denial. So that's how we will come to a conclusion. Next, a security architect recommends tokenization instead of encryption for protecting credit card information in an application database. Read again. A security architect recommends tokenization instead of encryption for protecting credit card information in an application database. Which objective is the primary reason for this recommendation? So, why do you think the security architect has recommended tokenization but not encryption? So, to improve integrity validation, prevent disclosure of sensitive data, increase application availability, eliminate authentication requirements. So here, what do tokenization do? It reduces exposure of actual sensitive values and it will minimize the risk of disclosure and protects confidentiality. So the answer is prevent disclosure of sensitive data. Next one. An attacker modifies DNS records. DNS means domain name server, redirecting users to a fraudulent website while keeping the original service operational. So this is also called as cross-site scripting, CSS. Which security principle is most directly compromised? Confidentiality, availability, integrity, or durability. Durability is not among our trade, so remove that directly. So CIA. Among CIA, the trustworthiness and correctness of DNS information was altered in this scenario. So this is an integrity failure by alterations. So integrity is the right answer. So availability also may appear unaffected, making this a tricky thinking. Next, a company's disaster recovery site successfully restores operations after a regional outage within the required RTO and RPO objectives. So, what is RTO and what is RPO? First, we should understand that to complete this question. So, RTO is nothing but recovery time objective. So, this is the maximum acceptable amount of time a system, application, or business process can be down after a system failure. It's the maximum amount of time. Then, what is RPO? It's recovery point objective, and this is the minimum acceptable amount of data loss measured in terms of time after a disaster or system failure happens. So, which CIA principle was most effectively demonstrated? So, read the question again. A company's disaster recovery site successfully restores operations. It has restored it successfully, but after a regional outage within the required RTO and RPO objectives, which principle was most effectively demonstrated among CIA. So, among CIA, authenticity is not there, so eliminate that. Among confidentiality, availability, and integrity, the organization ensured systems and services remained accessible within acceptable recovery objects. So, disaster recovery happened here and it is primarily supporting availability. So, always I want to iterate think like a manager, think like a manager. Thank you. Hope you have liked this video. So CIA protects, Dad attacks. Please do like, share, and subscribe. See you in the next video. Thank you.